Right now on the National Weather Desk, another storm could dump more snow in the Pacific Northwest, creating a high risk for avalanches.
Expect the avalanche danger to rise during the storm and potentially directly after the storm.
Large portions of the country could see spring-like temperatures this week, but the warmer weather comes with the risk of wildfires.
Warnings are put in place anytime weather conditions indicate a heightened fire potential.
We'll look at why new geysers are popping up across Reno, Nevada.
You can see that's very hot water, essentially boiling water coming right out of the asphalt.
And New York is expecting thousands of visitors for this year's solar eclipse. We'll get an inside look at how they're getting ready.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Lindsay Mastis. A powerful storm could bring some heavy snow to the Pacific Northwest today and through the Rockies over the next few days. We're going to turn now to Brian Vandegraff, who is tracking the system.
Well, after a very nice Sunday in the Pacific Northwest, we're watching a bunch of moisture start to work its way onshore with some rain in the lowlands and snow in the higher elevations, lots of wind and much colder air as well. Taking a look at the futurecast, you can see from showers and snow kind of mixed there from portions of Washington down to Oregon and right into portions of Idaho. But notice by midweek, just a soaker of rain across the Northwest. So that system will eventually translate across the eastern half of the United States. But for now, it's rain along the coast and higher snow totals in the Intermountain West.
Brian, thank you. And in Utah, that snow could be a risk for avalanches. This year has seen a mix of snow and unseasonable warmth, so that means a weak snow layer. Christian Sita explains.
It was our first clearing in quite a while.
More snow is on the way. It's nature's way of adding thrill to the winter season, but the Avalanche Center wants to remind skiers about safety.
Expect the avalanche danger to rise during the storm and potentially directly after the storm.
Nikki Champion with the Avalanche Center explains mountains are experiencing a persistent weak layer.
The last 10 days has created avalanches on that weak layering.
This weekend, the Utah Avalanche Center reports 5 avalanches, no injuries.
We saw avalanches that occurred on Friday and Saturday. We saw some avalanches within those weak faceted grains.
The current danger ratings across Utah remain moderate to considerable, with Logan, Salt Lake, and Ogden in a moderate state and Provo considerable. The danger will increase this week.
The main name of the game right now and with this year's snowpack is just patience. So we gotta give that snowpack time to heal. We are trending in the right direction.
Some beautiful scenery there. Now, in other parts of the country, red flag warnings are in effect, and this means strong winds and low humidity could cause outdoor fires to spread rapidly, putting lives and property in danger. Olivia Gauthier has more from Alabama.
One tiny spark can cause big damage. That's what Centerpoint Chief Fire Marshal Brandon Self tells me. He believes that often people just aren't aware of the dangers, and this could be what has contributed to the number of fires Centerpoint has seen recently.
I think it's more about educating and knowing that, hey, that we just can't do this because say I'm burning leaves in my yard and the wind picks up and the next thing I know, I've burnt my neighbor's fence down or I've damaged their property in some way. And that's happened quite often, especially in the last couple of weeks.
Warnings are put in place anytime weather conditions indicate a heightened fire potential, like extreme winds.
It only takes a second for an ember to fall off that log or the stump or whatever you happen to be burning, and the wind really carries it.
Sylacauga Fire Department Captain Sam Ogilvie explained how strenuous responding to multiple fires can be on smaller departments.
Lots of resources that are tied up on that we have to stretch out throughout the county. That makes it very difficult, and it does tax the fire department.
And we are now just 42 days from the solar eclipse across America. The state of New York is expecting thousands of visitors. Law enforcement in the state has also been preparing for that event for more than a year. Carly Miner is in Rochester, New York with more.
One way it was described to me is think about going to Bill's Stadium and times that by 10.
State Trooper Linnea Crane is talking about the total solar eclipse. With New York in the path of totality, law enforcement are planning ahead and asking you to do the same.
We'll have our aviation unit, we'll be utilizing our drone unit, UTVs, ATVs, and also our Marine Patrol. We're anticipating anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 people.
State police have been working with local and federal law enforcement to keep you safe.
just the eclipse itself, the total eclipse is only 3 minutes long. So, you know, it can cause major issues, but you have to plan ahead. If you're going to get out of work at 3 o'clock, just know you might end up in traffic. So plan ahead, right? Prepare.
And even if you're not planning to have your eyes to the sky on April 8th, still keep in mind roads, highways, and throughways are expected to be crowded.
Make sure your car is fully gassed. Electric vehicles, same thing. Make sure it has a full charge on it, because you don't know or can anticipate how long you might sit in traffic for and then become stranded if you don't have enough gas or energy for your car.
After 2.5 years of planning, Trooper Crane says they are prepared on all levels.
If you see something, say something. You know, we're trained, we're highly trained. We do a lot of these, even more recently, a lot of trainings on those types of events. So we're prepared, we're ready. So if something happens, we're going to respond. We're going to be the first ones out there. That's our job.
And you can stay with the National Weather Desk as we count down the days until the April 8th eclipse. We're also going to have much more on the eclipse posted on our YouTube channel. Just search the National Weather Desk and be sure to subscribe. Baltimore experienced a storm last week where the thunder sounded louder and lasted longer than usual. Meteorologist Amy Aronson explains why that's common in the winter.
This has to do with how thunder moves through the cold air during the winter time. We had an inversion in place. That means we had cool air at the surface and warmer air up above it. What happens is, as the thunder travels up towards that warmer air mass, it gets trapped or blocked, and then it just refracts right back down into the colder air mass. This is what amplifies the sound and makes it sound louder than usual. Now let's talk about that lingering sound, how it lasted longer than usual. This has to do with how the sound of thunder moves through the colder air versus the warmer air. In colder air, the sound tends to linger and takes longer to move through. But in the case of warmer air, like in the summertime, it typically disperses pretty fast and doesn't last as long.
Now, winter is nearing its end. That means cherry blossom season is around the corner here in D.C. And of course, the weather is playing a key role in the yearly peak bloom prediction, which the National Park Service will announce sometime next week. Meteorologist Jordan Evans has more.
April 4th, that is our average hitting peak bloom time frame. But the last 5 years, you might recall, it's actually been way ahead of schedule. The last 4 years, it's been in March, and then 2019, that was April 1st. Factors that do impact peak bloom: heavy rain, high winds. Once those blossoms start to develop and those stages progress, we'll have to watch those hard freezing temperature potential in the morning hours. Anything below 28 can really cause some issues, and calm weather at least can extend the lifelong of those peak blooms.
Jordan, thank you. And clouds can also take different shapes. Some are going to look fluffy and wispy. Some look like flying saucers. Meteorologist Dante Ricci explains the formation of one type of rare cloud that is shaped like ocean waves.
Sometimes there's some unique patterns that Mother Nature can give us. And on a windy day, a rare phenomenon can happen that can create clouds that are shaped like waves, almost like the waves in the ocean, in fact. Well, these are so rare that they have to have a certain change in wind speed. It's usually a very windy day outside. The winds at the ground could be strong, but here's the thing. They're not as strong as those winds higher up into the sky. Over several thousand feet, there's a significant shear or change in the wind speed from ground to the sky above, not necessarily a change in wind direction. That's what creates what we call Kelvin-Helmholtz clouds, which have this very unique shape. This is a rare phenomenon. It doesn't happen often. You have to have a certain strong change in the winds as you go up, and it's usually indication of a very turbulent atmosphere with hazardous air travel for airplanes in that particular layer, as well as windy conditions at the ground level. I'm meteorologist Dante Ricci.
And some not so great news for the East Coast of the United States. New data is showing that it's sinking. Using satellite and GPS sensors, NASA scientists found more than half of the infrastructure in major cities like New York and Baltimore is built on land that sank by 1 to 2 millimeters per year between 2007 and 2020. Scientists are blaming groundwater pumping and dam building. Well, coming up on the National Weather Desk, we're going to find out why new hot water geysers are popping up in Reno, Nevada. Now we're taking a look at how AI technology is helping us to better understand outer space.
I'm meteorologist Emily Santum. Things will be warm in the northeast for today. We're mostly going to be in the 40s and around 50 degrees or so. The further north you head, that's where we're seeing some cooler temperatures in the 40s, 38 degrees for Caribou, Maine. And the further south you head, a little bit of a warm up. We're looking at 55 degrees for New York, 53 down Atlantic City, 49 over in Buffalo. We're tracking some snow showers to move through Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, but by the afternoon, things will look pretty clear.
I'm meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with a look at the mid-Atlantic region. We'll wake up to a few clouds, some areas starting the day with snow and a wintry mix. Farther south, there is the chance for a few showers, and that rain continues to stay to the south for the afternoon. Most of us around the region will stay nice and dry. Then as we head into Tuesday, we'll get ready for that next weather maker. Temperatures will be warmer than average, reaching the 50s and 60s. Then get ready for a cool night in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. Nashville getting up to 76 degrees, Tupelo 77, 76 in Birmingham. Atlanta right around 74 degrees. Up towards Raleigh, cooler at 69 degrees. Jacksonville 75. And looking at those 70s across parts of Florida. It looks like we're seeing sun and clouds. A few spotty showers over the high country of the Carolinas, but it looks like that'll be moving through Raleigh. A little bit of rain as they get through the afternoon. Atlanta nice and clear. Jacksonville down through Florida. High pressure, keep it as nice, clear, and sunny.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
The weekend brought cold and precipitation in different forms in parts of the country. At least two types in Virginia, from sleet that fell for a while to mountain snow that showed up in fluffy flakes, with a furry friend ready to enjoy it all. And the frosty weather left behind an elegant windshield design on this car Sunday morning.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
For decades, boiling hot water has percolated underground in South Reno. But in the last several months, that underground activity has risen to the surface. Ben Marjad looks at what's causing this scientific phenomenon.
A crack in the earth, scalding hot water with that rotten egg smell bubbling up and out.
208 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's essentially boiling at this altitude.
What's going on is a scientific phenomenon baffling the experts.
Really, it's a mystery. We don't.
Especially fascinating for nuclear physicist Taylor Wilson is that less than a year ago, a blip in geologic time, this was just dirt. But today, near the Steamboat Hot Springs Spa in South Reno, it's boiling back to life.
It's incredible. You know, most people thought that this geyser field had died, and now it's starting to reemerge.
The area was once home to the third largest geyser in the United States, erupting 60 to 80 feet in the air.
And again, nature had other plans, and you can see that's very hot water, you know, essentially boiling water coming right out of the asphalt.
So why here and why now? Wilson says Nevada is the perfect spot, positioned next to two moving tectonic plates.
In western Nevada, the crust is thin enough and that magma is close enough to the surface that it can heat the groundwater as it enters deep into the earth along these fractures.
As for why now, that's still a mystery, but Wilson has a few theories.
And so there's an active earthquake swarm centered not much more than a mile that way. That, combined with the big winter we had last year, has probably raised the water table and put hydraulic pressure on the hydrology of the system. Could even be the operation of the geothermal power plant as they change the dynamics of the operation of the plant.
He and others will continue to study the why, and in the meantime marvel at our ever-changing planet.
Pretty incredible. Now, while satellites and probes have been giving us a good view and understanding of how the sun's equator looks, the sun's poles have always been a bit of a mystery. But with the use of artificial intelligence, scientists are creating models to help them better understand the solar poles and the impact that they have on Earth.
So this is really meant to be an educated guess of what we could expect there to be. And hopefully we can extract some information out of this that could be maybe validated in the future once we have observations of the poles, or at least that could be used to help inform future missions in terms of what they could expect once they reach those locations.
What are the poles like based on what you've kind of come up with image-wise here? Do they behave like anywhere similar to Earth's poles? Was there anything about it that surprised you?
The sun and the Earth, although they have some similarities in terms of both having magnetic fields, they're still very different in terms of properties. The sun has features that we call coronal holes. And if you look at the sun in extreme ultraviolet light, which is where you see most of its activity, you'll see that the poles has two dark regions, basically. Each pole has like what we call a polar coronal hole. And the idea is basically we can see the outlines of those features using satellite images from the equator, but you barely see them. You don't see much. But here now we can really go see in detail that those polar coronal holes and try to extract information out about them. For example, what's their area, what's their outline, and try to relate that to maybe other physical phenomena like the sun's magnetic field potentially, and the stream of particles, the solar wind that is coming out of the poles.
There's been a lot of buzz lately about like solar storms and the power grid and flares. So is the end goal kind of like to forecast those events? We
know that the poles are playing a role in the sun's magnetic activity, which is what creates the solar flares, coronal mass ejections, geomagnetic storms that can impact Earth and have impacts, for example, on our satellites, power grids, communications, all those things. So this is basically with this tool, we will get a new perspective of the poles and maybe help us assess what the role it plays in these events. But I wouldn't consider it yet a forecasting tools for this.
And to hear Benoit talk about the future of solar exploration and when we might get a real view of the solar poles, you can head over to our YouTube and watch the longer version of the interview. Just search for the National Weather Desk. Well, have you ever been unexpectedly shocked opening a door, grabbing a handle, even touching a sweater? Believe it or not, temperature is playing a role in these static shocks. Meteorologist Evan Chikvera explains.
So I think we've all been there before, right? You're especially on a cold morning. Get up, you're walking towards the door, unassuming. It looks totally harmless, right? Then you go to touch it, and you get that shock, that electric shock. Why the heck does that happen?
So let's first discuss the properties of cold air versus warm air. We've talked about this before. Cold air, it holds less moisture. Moisture is a good thing in the sense that when you have water vapor present in the atmosphere, it helps with the overall stability of ions. There's more of a balance between positive and negative. When you have the cold air, you have a bigger discrepancy. It's harder to get to that balance between positive and negative. And so you'll get these charges that'll jump on handles and on car doors and other objects. So when you go to touch them, you'll get that shock.
So now we kind of have an idea of how it works, but are there any ways to minimize these? Let's talk about that. So your pure cottons are going to be the best thing to wear to avoid the static and those charges. Things that we love that you want to stay away from, these plush blankets, that'll cause your static. These, the lovely, fuzzy socks, excellent to keep you warm, bad for creating charges. Things that are helpful. We got our dryer sheets. You put these in the dryer, or even you've probably seen, you put these in the sleeves of your shirt. This will help get rid of that excess negative charges on your clothes. You can also run a humidifier too in your house. And those are all ways that you can minimize that static. So not saying it won't ever happen, but it's most likely on those colder mornings, most likely if you got on polyesters, those synthetic sort of, even like this dry fit, but changing a couple things in your environment can stop you from getting that annoying little shock. That's how it works.
And now we know what to do if we want to shock someone. All right, millions of Americans are going to feel higher than normal temperatures today, with some areas expected to set new high records for February. So let's check to see the weather in cities across the country. We're going to start here in the D.C. area, a mix of sun and clouds today for the nation's capital. We have a high today of nearly 64 degrees. And a look at Texas capital here, Austin, where there are areas of dense fog this morning. Cloudy skies will give way to some sun this afternoon. They're going to have a high of 89 degrees. And a look here at Cincinnati's Great American Baseball Field. Sunshine with a few clouds today in Cincinnati, a high of 69 degrees. And now look at Chattanooga, Tennessee, where it's a mix of sun and clouds with highs in the mid-70s. And time now for a very short break, but we're going to take some time to take flight over beautiful Utah.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. A pretty nice day for most of us across the Midwest today. Got maybe a few light snow showers to the far north, but look at these 60s and 70s and even 50s closer to the Great Lakes. Now, tomorrow, we've got thunderstorms starting to develop, so we could have a few strong storms across the Ohio Valley and lower Great Lakes, and some snow trying to move into the northern plains, and a few storms kick their way to the east Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region, and it's going to be a really warm day. We'll start off in the 50s and 60s, and we'll climb into the 70s from Little Rock to New Orleans, but most of the region seeing 80s, even a few 90s, 93 from Dallas to Abilene through your day today. Just a few passing clouds. Tuesday, mostly cloudy in the morning. A mild start once again in the 60s and low 70s, and then we'll go for the 70s and 80s once again on your Tuesday. Small storm chance in northern Arkansas.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We have a powerful, strong cold front that's pushing in, bringing well below normal temperatures back to the Pacific Northwest, along with very heavy mountain snow. Coming in behind the front, we are seeing several feet pile up through the course of the next 2 days, and we'll begin to get some very significant winds working their way with snow across Nevada and Utah. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, snowfall trends seem to be changing across the country, and it appears less has been falling these days compared to a half century ago. Meteorologist Emily Samtum explains.
Analyzed over 2,000 United States stations and found that 2/3 are experiencing less snowfall now than they did about 50 years ago. To be exact, that's 1,301 stations. Snow is the warming Earth's form of an air conditioner. Plus, more than 50% of all snowmelt goes to the restoration of groundwater to the western portion of the U.S. Now, warmer air means more moisture. Climate Essentials says that the atmosphere holds about 4% more moisture per degree added. Now, snowstorms are occurring less but are growing in strength when they do happen, bringing heavy snow or rain to areas depending on the temperature. Since 1970, there have been more than 700 stations all in the U.S. that actually saw more snow.
And if you are looking for more content like this, be sure to follow us on social media. We post all the latest content from our team of meteorologists across the country, and you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lindsay Mastis. Make it a great Monday. And of course, we'll see you right back here tomorrow.